Okay, so welcome all. My name is Joe White, and but first I'm going to, before we begin, turn you over to Todd Whitley, the Executive Director of Masterwork, who is going to do the introductory commercial.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, welcome everyone. The Masterwork Music and Art Foundation has been supporting excellence in the arts for over 50 years. And today we do so by offering 3 different levels of grants: a Premier Award, a $10,000 award that goes out to an artist, and we have a series of community arts grants, specifically for individuals or organizations that support arts in the community, and some competitive awards that we give out. We also have a series of free dance classes that people can participate in, open to the public. And this series here, A Life in the Arts, which celebrates people who've committed themselves to the arts in a number of different ways. Tonight, we're so fortunate to have Wayne Walters. He is a multi-hyphenate talent with an amazing career, and he's also a board member of the Masterwork Music and Art Foundation. So with that, I'll just say you can stay in touch with us at masterworkarts.org. And Joe, take it away.
Okay. So this is an interesting thing to be doing, this particular interview, because Wayne and I go way back. I was standing with that group of 200 people that they made sure they had if they were going to let me sing, so that you couldn't hear me too well. But from there, watching Wayne make his debut in Carnegie Hall with the Masterwork Chorus and Orchestra. Was the debut in Messiah?
Yes.
Okay. And I know you also, you sang the Verdi Requiem with us, I know.
Sang the Verdi Requiem. That wasn't in Carnegie. That was in, I think, St. Thomas Church. But it was, right. It was very important for me at that point, because David Randolph had asked me to do the bass solo work in Messiah for their Carnegie Hall performances. They had always performed it in Carnegie Hall, but for me, that was my premier performance in Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, wow.
So it was very, very important to me, and has been, for a long, long time.
Yeah. Well, so what I would love for you to do is to give us a kind of an overview of your life in the arts, because I know you went to school in Wilkes-Barre in Pennsylvania,
right?
And and the other thing that I wish I had had you as my music teacher in high school.
Oh, really?
Because I had a wonderful music teacher in junior high, Sam Hollander, who with
I knew Sam Hollander well.
Yeah, a wonderful man.
Yes, he was.
So but I went out to St. Bernard School in Gladstone, New Jersey, and they at the time they didn't have a music department that you could actually call that. So
no.
But you've been an educator. You've performed in the great stages, as a baritone, and and also have a major career conducting choirs, and also composing some wonderful work. So that's I don't know. Tell us about that life in the arts.
Well, you mentioned Wilkes-Barre. For people who don't know that part of Pennsylvania, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area, one very important thing about it, which connects me very well, is, first of all, I'm about 60% Welsh.
Okay.
And I brag about it a great deal. Richard Burton and I, we represent the Welsh as well as we can. But there was a very large Welsh population in northeastern Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was coming through Wilkes University as a student, we began getting involved in the Welsh Eisteddfods, which were the Welsh singing contests.
Yes.
And our chorus from the college won several times, and I was very fortunate to win a couple of awards as a solo singer. And shortly after I graduated, I was being called back to do a lot of Welsh things. I sang some St. David's Day celebrations. I did some Gaman Faganis in all over the place. In Edwardsville, Pennsylvania, by the way, is right across the river from Wilkes-Barre and had one of the longest running Eisteddfods in the United States. It was quite wonderful. And so my first experience with kind of mini touring was touring the Welsh circuits, doing these things. And it was a wonderful part of the heritage of the area where I grew up. And I always held that, and I still do. I've been to Wales several times, my wife and I, and we love it very much. And I even nailed down a spot where I would love to be sometime, love to live sometime in Llangollen in Wales.
Okay.
But in any case, I went from Wilkes-Barre, and I came into New Jersey to teach. My degree was in music education, and I came and into the Madison School District and started in New Jersey, and that was in 1959.
Okay.
So I've been teaching since then. From there, while I was still down in South Jersey, I had applied to the Juilliard School for graduate study, and had come up to the Juilliard School for their horrendous exams, graduate exams. And a few days later, I received a note that I had been granted graduate study, and 2 days later, I got a letter that I had gotten the Graduate Voice Scholarship.
Wow.
To study at the school. So, and I studied with Sergius Coggin, who most people recognize as a fantastic editor. And it was my great honor to study under him. And he prepared me well as a recitalist and as a singer, and I am still doing it. I'm still doing oratorio and oratorio work and recital work, and I'm loving it, and I always have. He told me that if you sing properly, you'll be able to sing all your life. And I'm a living example of it, because just 2 or 3 years ago, I recorded my first recital album. And I'm very proud of that at age 84. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he asked me how old I was. And I said, I'm 84 going on 40. And I was not teasing with him, because I'm around the age of 40 when I began to really get very, very serious into the area of composition, composing, arranging. And since then, I've been composing, and it's given, every time I sit down and compose a new work, it's new. So my life is never something I look forward to because it's the end of something, because I'm always living in the beginning of something. What? It's a wonderful experience, and Ann and I share that so wonderfully. So it's done me very well. But educationally, yeah, I taught total of 36 years in the school system, mostly in Morristown, New Jersey, and for the Morris School District. I was the choral director at Morristown High School for 15 years, loved every single minute of it, and in the junior high at the Frelinghuysen School. While I was still teaching there, I was doing part-time teaching at the College of St. Elizabeth. And as soon as I retired from Morristown, I went down to, which is now St. Elizabeth University, and I taught there in their voice department and their music department for 15 years beyond there. And I've taught at Fairleigh Dickinson. I've gone back to Wilkes University in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, again for 2 summer sessions where I was conducting students in summer session. In fact, I was composing that one summer session under a Dodge grant in composition, and it really kind of gave me the kickstart to this secondary part of my musical experience. Right. So I've had it all. I've been teaching, I've been concertizing and singing and performing. But conducting is something that is very special, and I've been conducting 60 years, and you think by now I would catch on to how to do it all, but it's interesting. But it's been a wonderful experience, and
Well, I was going to ask you.
Past December when I was back conducting Choral Society, but I formed the Morris Choral Society in 1973. And
I was going to ask you about to tell us about how that came about.
Regular conductor, yeah. Now I'm conductor emeritus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
but that's kind of a thumbnail of
okay.
where I am.
So I have some pictures that you have. Well, actually, you gave me some pictures, and let me see if I can pull them up and share them. Okay, and we want to be here, and so, and we're going to reshare the screen a little differently, and you can tell us.
Well, I'm afraid of what you might pull up.
Nah. Okay, there you go.
Oh my, yes, that's my younger self. One of the great fun pieces is Menotti's telephone. I've done it several times. I've done it locally here in the Morris County area. I've done it in New York a couple of times. It's a wonderful. It's for two people. It's a two-man show. Actually, it's a three-man show. The Artois, as you know, in the secondary title is the telephone. And every time he tries to propose marriage to his young lady, the phone rings and interrupts them. And it's a constant comedy. It's a wonderful piece, wonderful theater piece. And I've always enjoyed the acting aspect of stage work as well as the singing. And this is that's what it is. That's from one of the performances. Yes.
And I'm going to try to move. Yeah. Well, hold on. That's in an opera that's a bit more familiar, I think, to more people.
Yeah. This is Madame Butterfly, and doing the role of Sharpless. I do believe that was at the War Memorial in Trenton, and I think it was the Trenton State Opera Workshop that was doing that. I was when I left the Juilliard School after Mr. Coggan's death, I hadn't gotten the degree yet, but I went down to Trenton, and I finished my degree in conducting. So, but as a concert singer and performer at the time, they had asked me whether I would step in and do the Sharpless role, which I was delighted to do. It's a wonderful role for baritone.
And and here is the Choral Society.
That's Morris Choral Society, right? That's a performance at the Methodist Church on the Green in Morristown, where we've done a lot of performances, and we are still doing performances there, as a matter of fact.
Right.
But the Choral Society, while I was conducting them, we took 8 European concert tours. This was the one in Scotland. It's an interesting church. This is if you know the Royal Mile, as they call it in Edinburgh, where you can, it's a mile up to the castle. This church is down at the bottom, and it's just it's a lovely place. It really is.
Okay, and and then this is a very special poster.
Yes. This was in 2015 when I had actually finished the complete composition of my first opera. This is a one-act opera, Germaine, based on the life of Germaine Cosson, who was really a 16th century French gal. She died at the age of 22 years old. It's a rather tragic story. But she was a devout Christian who lived her life for her connection with God. It was her only positive connection. and she was claimed that she had performed miracles. And this opera, what I was trying to do was give us a little background on Saint Germain. She is a saint, and the three miracles and so forth, and tied it all together. She's also the patron saint of abused children. And I took that very seriously because back in 2015, we had some experiences where or I had an experience of working with people who also worked with abused children. And it's rather interesting because if you go back to the 1600s and she's the patron saint of abused children, you know, back then, and here we are still facing the same kind of problem in 2015. So it was very apropos, and it was also apropos when we did the performance. It wasn't a staged performance; it was a concert version performance with the full orchestra, and it was at the Abbey at Delbarton, which was just doubly nice for me. I enjoyed that combination of the right story at the right time, with the right music, and in the right place.
Okay. Well, here's
This is
the Choral
concert tour
Society
of
again.
Italy. Yes, we had a wonderful tour of Italy. We sang at the Church of San Giorgio in Florence. Yes, no, not Florence. Although we did sing in Florence, we sang in Milan, and we sang in Rome. But there's the gentleman in the center with the tie was our tour guide, and the gentleman giving him a hug is somebody that a lot of people in this area will recognize. That's Rio Clemente. And Rio Clemente in the New Jersey, New York area is known as the most wonderful jazz pianist, the Bishop of Jazz, Rio Clemente. And he and his wife went with us at that time, and we all had a wonderful time.
Okay, and there you are.
Yeah, this was we needed a publicity shot at the time, and this was at the Church of the Redeemer in Morristown. We had done several performances there, and it was just a catch chance to get that PR shot that we needed.
Okay, well,
You'll notice that the hair is at that point.
All right,
not
too
quite
fast
now, but you know.
No, it's here. No, go ahead. No, go ahead with what you're saying.
Yeah,
I jumped the gun. No, anyway. All right. Well, so thank you for that overview. Now, the one other, well, do you have anything that you have available there of one of your compositions that we could play?
No, not that you could play. I wouldn't be able to play anything for you now. I didn't realize, but I can show you. This is rather interesting because I was introduced this about 2 years ago to the poetry of Myra Brooks Welsh, a lovely lady. She lived in California, and she wrote a poem called "The Touch of the Master's Hand." I'm going to show you the cover of it. I hope it doesn't glare out of proportion. And we are now in rehearsal for it. She wrote it in 1921 and published her first set of poems in 1921. So this is dedicated to her and in her memory, and for the 100th anniversary of the Church of the Brethren. She belonged to that church, and the Church of the Brethren had published her poem and 2 volumes of her poetry. This poem is known all over the world. And in the 1930s, the New York Times in their book review, were talking about best known poems in the world. and hers ranked number 10.
Wow.
It's a fascinating poem about the auctioneer who has the violin, and he asks how much it would, and nobody wants to bid on it. It's an old piece of junk, and a gentleman comes up from the back, takes it out, dusts it off, and plays the most gorgeous tune. And the idea, of course, wow, this is maybe it's worth 1,000, maybe it's worth 2,000 now. And what happened was, why is it worth so much more? Because it was the touch of a master's hand.
Right.
And she goes on in the poetry to put it into the spiritual and the soul of people, to the point where at the end, it's the aid for all people for all time is the touch of the master's hand.
Mm.
And it's been wonderful. There was one composition written. It's a country and western tune. It was written, which was really quite good. I wanted to write a concert version of it. So this is a concert version. It's for chorus, it's for baritone solo, and piano and solo violin. And we are now in a rehearsal, and we're hoping that in the middle of May, we'll be down at Drew University, and we'll be cutting recordings of it. So it's very exciting because it's right on the doorstep of New.
Well, we'll have to see if we can arrange to share that with the people hearing us now tonight. When you get your recordings.
Yes,
that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that we should probably mention that you and I go back to is back in the 1970s. I auditioned for and got accepted into the chorus of a production of an original opera, and the director who had been employed for that had promptly quit for reasons I never did understand. And it was one of these things where you kind of asked around, does anybody know how to direct? And I directed a few plays at that point. And I raised my hand and found myself the director of Ransford Rogers, an original opera, and of whom you were the star.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And
yes.
we did a bunch of, we actually did it in two separate kind of productions. We did it originally at the Morris Museum of Arts and Sciences, and then we did it at County College of Morris a couple of years later. And
I thought we did a performance at Fairleigh Dickinson too. We may have done.
We might have, yeah. We had well, that's right, because we did the thing. There was this. It was called Spectrum 70.
Yes, something like that. It was
and we did that there. And but I remember that when we moved it out to County College of Morris, suddenly we had people running through the audience as part of some of the crowd scenes.
Yes.
And I remember that suddenly that became a lot more difficult because they have, lecture hall type seating with very, very steep banks. Right. There were people getting up to the top of them and puffing and huffing for days before they could sing again. But anyway, but that was a really fun experience, and one that I remember very well. And part of the reason that the whole thing worked was because you provided the thing that held it all together, the central character.
That was written, Lou Gordon wrote that, and Lou was a wonderful guy. As most people who knew him knew him as a marvelous musician, wonderful musician, and his wife was a brilliant pianist. And he was a wonderful jazz pianist and arranger. I actually taught down at Fairleigh Dickinson at the university for about 4 or 5 years. But for both the ed department and the music department, teaching a music ed course down there. I got to know Lou very well. And then Walter Savage was in the ed department, I guess English ed department there, and they combined.
He was the librettist. Yes,
this piece. it's really this. It's really a true story, basically. In a way, it's a Ransford Rogers himself was a fictitious character, I guess, but
No, he
or
was a
maybe
real
it
person,
was
and
actually, yeah,
he
because
was
it was
an
about the ghost of Morristown and how he
18th
worked with the
century
police
con man.
to just filch people of all of their money, and he was, I guess he got away with his life. He wasn't hung, but I guess he could have been if he was caught. It's the only role I've ever done as a really nasty guy. So
Well,
but
except
it was a really,
but he was
really
charming.
piece, and it was an excellent piece of music. It
Yeah,
was
no,
a joy to do.
charm will sell all sorts of nefarious things, as we find. But it no, and he was actually an historical character, and actually the way he got away with it is,
Oh
he had
yeah,
done all these con stuff. He'd done all these cons, and he did manage. He went to Montclair supposedly and put together a pamphlet that had
Mhm.
not only how the con had worked, but it also named the names and how much money all of the fathers of Morristown, the town fathers, had put into the pot
Oh
and been
yes.
swindled out of.
Oh yes,
And
and
they
they would have
evidently
been
paid
embarrassed out
him.
of their minds at that point. That's right.
They paid him more than he had originally swindled them out of to suppress that pamphlet.
That's right.
And I believe somebody actually had a copy of that pamphlet. I'd love to see it. I've never actually physically seen the pamphlet.
I wish I don't have, but I wish I still had a copy of the score.
Mm, yeah.
I don't, but it's it was great fun.
Yeah, it was a delight,
Mhm.
and particularly if you there were parts of it that were very serious, but they didn't last long, and then you got into energetic and fun, and it was there was a great deal of fun, and there were some really great people we got to work with in there. Uh,
Right.
but anyway, well, listen. So what's next? I mean, obviously, this piece that you're working on there.
Well,
Uh,
I'm working on this. As you know, I sing with Express Male, MALE, which is a wonderful male sextet, and we're doing all kinds of wonderful things. Looking forward to cutting some recordings. I'm still cantering. I cantor up at the Abbey at Delbarton,
mhm.
St. Mary's Abbey, um, and enjoying my work. I have one or two compositions that I have in mind. One that I'm beginning to put themes together for. I want to write a solid version of a credo. As you probably realize, I do a great deal of my music as sacred music.
Right.
I've always been very involved in sacred music. All of my time in Morristown, I've sung at and conducted the choirs at the Methodist Church in Morristown. I sang for 30 years with the quartet at Temple B'nai Or. I sang at St. Peter's for a while, and it's been wonderful having all these associations, and my knowledge of sacred music is what I enjoy doing the most. The mass that I wrote, the Requiem, I wrote, and it was well, yeah, for Elizabeth Ann Seton, our American saint, and it was written in her honor. It again was performed up at Delbarton, rightly so, because Father Edward Seton is there, is priest there at and the prior at St. Mary's Abbey.
Right.
So it was a wonderful connection, and it gave me a wonderful opportunity to write a major work for orchestra and chorus and soloists, and,
Well, I would So the only frustrating thing about this particular interview, this particular conversation, is that I really want to somehow get some of your music, the music you write, into it. So since this just the audience will know, well, this was pre-recorded because Mr. Walters has a permanent appointment on Monday nights. And so, yes,
Basically, yes.
yes. And so we are recording this on another night, and it will be, in fact, put on the web on a Monday, a subsequent Monday. And maybe between now and then, we can get a piece of your music that we can add on here, because it's the only thing that's really missing from this particular conversation, I think. So,
Ah.
and let's.
It's too bad I didn't know, because I could have sent you some music that you could have used as background.
Well, but we'll make that happen.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I think, Todd, there you are.
Oh, I had one more question for Wayne.
Sure.
Wayne, I was wondering if you could share something that you learned from a mentor that had a lasting impact on your career.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of mentors, and in some different ways. Mr. Coggin, of course, was a mentor as far as his concern for me as a performer. I think he knew that when I was studying, I wasn't just studying and that I would go out and and become a lawyer or something. I think he knew that I was headed for a professional career. And he gave me some wonderful advice. He was like kind of the father figure, and in a way, he really taught me how to teach myself a piece of music. You don't realize this, but I had to commute from Philadelphia to New York because I was teaching in South Jersey. And I would catch a bus out of Pennsauken and that was out of Philadelphia, go to New York, study with him, jump on the bus, go back down, get there about 1 o'clock in the morning, and then get up to teach the next morning. Yes. And I did this for about a good year and a half anyway. And he told me, he said, you have the most wonderful experience that any musician could have. You have an hour and a half of silence where you can pick up a piece of music and learn it. And when you come into me, sing it for me. It was an experience to pick up a piece of music, sitting on the bus. There's no other sound, making myself listen to what's on that musical score. And I got to the point where I was able to do it. Absolutely. I mean, it made the greatest difference in my life. I'm not always saying I'm the greatest singer in the world, but I'm a wonderful reader, and I can do that. And someone who is a really good singer and can read music is worth their weight in gold. And he was wonderful that way. Another mentor in a different way was Rabbi Z. David Levy, who was at Temple B'nai Or in Morristown. He became a very wonderful friend. I mean, a true friend. We shared a lot of times. At the end of a service, we'd sit down and we start talking about things. He'd want to know how my family is. I want to, and we would talk. And he helped me make a wonderful religious connection between the Hebraic music that I was performing and the Christian connotations of my own heart. And it stayed with me all my life. I wear a medal that has a cross on it. And at the bottom of the cross is a Star of David. And so many people have asked me about that when I wear it. How come you have that Star of David? And I said, because you realize the true roots of your Christianity when you really understand your Hebraic roots. And it was through him. And that had a tremendous impact on the writing that I've done. And I don't know if you know it, but I did write a setting for the Friday evening service, Reform service, Shabbat Hoda'ah. And it was performed there while he was alive and still there. And it meant a great deal to him, but he didn't realize what a great deal he meant to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and you know who else impresses me? All the people that I've worked with. You know, I've worked with, and I'm still working today with wonderful, wonderful, talented musicians. I love them all. I appreciate them so very, very much. But I think about all of the students and all of the people I've touched over the period of the last 60 years that I've been conducting and teaching and working. And you know, I still have kids that I taught at the high school who get in touch with me. I still meet people in town who knew me and in different relationships. We sang in choirs together, or they sang with choral society, or they sang with choirs that I conducted, and they still love music. And you know, I really think that's, as musicians, that's our job. Our job is not to put ourselves out in front as something special. Our job is to be there so that other people can learn this wonderful, wonderful art. There's nothing like the art of being able to sing. It's the greatest expression of art. Because when man can no longer say what he has to say, all he can do is sing.
Mm. Okay. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. And fortunately, we are still able to say things. So, but I think I will try. I'll speak with you later, and we'll see if we can't bring both of Wayne's own music, and then also I do have his recital album, and we need to have a little bit of. We want some of his voice too, and when this actually is aired, I think we'll include both of those if we can.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, Todd, you want to, as they say, take us out?
The outro. Thanks for joining us, everyone. To stay in touch, visit us on masterworkarts.org or follow us on Facebook. You'll find a blog post about Wayne with more information and some links. And thank you, Wayne, very much for participating tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's an honor to know you, and you're an inspiration.
Yes. Thank you, Todd.
All right. Thank you very much, Wayne.
Thank you,
and it's wonderful to reconnect after all these. It seems like eons sometimes, but yes.
Not really, Joe.
Oh, it was yesterday. You're right. Okay. And we'll do our last two little slides here. And well, after that conversation, it occurred to me that the one thing missing was the ability to hear Wayne perform. So we're going to hear two arias from a 2005 CD he recorded with Kathy McNeil as his accompanist. And the first aria is Thou Art Gone Up on High from Handel's Messiah, a piece that I've had the pleasure of hearing Wayne perform while watching the back of his head while I was standing in the chorus. So please enjoy.
Up on high, thou art gone up on high. Thou hast led captivity captive, thou hast led captivity captive, and received gifts for men, yea, even for thine enemies, yea, even for might dwell among them, that the Lord God might dwell among them. Thou art gone up on high, thou art gone up on high, thou hast led captivity captive, thou hast led captivity captive, and received gifts for men, yea, even for thine enemies, for thine enemies. That the Lord God might dwell among them, that the Lord God might dwell among them, that the Lord God might dwell among them, might dwell among them, that the Lord God might dwell among them.
And to conclude, we're going to have a piece by Thomas Arne, a composer I wasn't familiar with, but turns out he's the composer of Rule Britannia and A Hunting We Will Go. This is a piece from 1738, and it's from a musical called Comus, and here it is.
Preach not me your musty rules, ye drones that mold in idle cell. The heart is wiser than the schools, the senses always reason well. If short my span, I less can spare to pass a single pleasure by. An hour is long if lost in care. They only live, they only live, they only live full life and joy. They only live, they only live, they only live full life and joy.